Life is full of moments we never see coming, moments that change everything in the blink of an eye. I never believed in life after death. I never thought I would cross over and come back. But one fateful day on a class trip to Italy, I died. I felt my heart stop. I left my body. And what I saw, what I felt, was more real than anything I had ever known. Now, I have no choice but to share this with you. Because what I discovered on the other side changed my life forever.
I was 17 years old, filled with excitement and wonder. It was my first time leaving the country, a dream trip to Italy with my classmates. Everything felt like an adventure. The sights, the sounds, the history surrounding us. But I never expected that this trip would take me somewhere beyond this world. It started as a simple mistake. I hadn't slept much in the days leading up to the trip. I was too excited, running on pure adrenaline. By the time we landed, I was exhausted, but I didn't want to miss a second of the experience. So I did what many teenagers would do. I tried to push through. I had brought along some caffeine pills, something I'd used before during late-night study sessions. I thought they would help me stay awake, keep me alert, but I wasn't careful. I took too many. At first, it was just a tingling under my skin. My heart started to race, but I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I was just nervous. Maybe it was jet lag. Then it got worse. We were on the tour bus, heading into the city. I leaned forward, gripping the seat in front of me. My chest felt tight. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, like a drum echoing inside my skull. And then it changed. The pounding slowed. Ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump. Then silence. I was terrified. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. I could feel my body shutting down, my vision blurred, my thoughts faded, and then I popped out of my body. It was instant. One moment I was trapped in my failing body. The next I was floating, completely aware, completely conscious. There was no tunnel, no slow transition. It just happened. And suddenly, everything was clearer than it had ever been before. I looked down and saw myself. My lifeless body was still there, slumped over in my seat, but I wasn't in it. I wasn't connected to it anymore. Yet I didn't feel afraid. In fact, I felt better than I ever had. Lighter, freer. There was no pain, no exhaustion, no fear. I wasn't just awake. I was alive in a way I had never been before. And then I saw something else. Everything around me had changed. The world wasn't just physical anymore. I could see energy moving and flowing through everything. The bus, the people, even the air itself. Colors were deeper, sounds were richer. It was as if my senses had been dull my whole life, and now, for the first time, I was experiencing the world as it truly was. But before I could even process what was happening, something pulled me away. Something or someone. And that was only the beginning. As I floated above my body, the confusion lingered, but only for a moment. I knew without a doubt that I had died. And yet, I was still here, still thinking, still feeling, more aware than ever before. There was no fear, no panic. Instead, a profound sense of peace surrounded me, as if I had slipped into a world that had always been there, just beyond my reach. Then I began to notice something extraordinary. Everything around me had a glow, a soft, pulsating light that seemed to breathe. The walls of the bus, the seats, even the people, everything was emitting energy. Some glowed warmly, others flickered faintly, and some barely had any light at all. It was as if I was seeing the essence of things, beyond what the eyes could normally perceive. And then I turned my attention to the driver. He was gripping the wheel, muttering under his breath about the traffic. But I wasn't just seeing him, I was seeing into him. His body was there, physical and solid, but beyond that, I could sense his emotions, his struggles. I knew things about him without being told. I knew he was exhausted. I knew he carried regrets. I knew he had been unfaithful in his marriage, and that it weighed on him, though he never admitted it to anyone. I wasn't judging him. I just understood him. And that's when I realized something even more astonishing. I could see through the barrier that separated people from each other. On earth, we keep so much hidden, our thoughts, our pain, our truth. But here, in this state, nothing was hidden. Every soul had a signature, a vibration, an energy that told their story without a single word. I turned my gaze back to my own body, still slumped against the window of the bus. It looked strange to me, foreign, like an old coat I had outgrown. There was barely any energy coming from it now, just the faintest flicker, like a candle that had nearly burned out. And yet, I felt more alive than I ever had inside that body. But before I could process any more, something shifted. A force, gentle but firm, began to pull me away. It wasn't scary or forceful. It felt intentional, like an unseen hand guiding me somewhere I was meant to go. I didn't resist. The bus, my body, the people, they all faded away. The physical world slipped from my sight as I was drawn into something far greater. Then, suddenly, I was no longer on the bus. I was standing in a realm of pure, endless light. A light that was unlike anything I had ever seen before. And I wasn't alone. The moment I entered this new realm, I felt something so powerful, so pure, that it nearly overwhelmed me. Light was everywhere, not just around me, but within me. It wasn't harsh or blinding, but soft and alive, pulsing like a gentle heartbeat. I had no body, yet I felt whole. I had no weight, yet I existed in a way more real than I ever had before. And then I felt it, a presence. Not just any presence, something vast, powerful, and beyond comprehension, yet deeply familiar. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't distant. It knew me. It had always known me. For a moment, I could hardly comprehend it. I had no words, no thoughts, only a deep and overwhelming sensation of love. Not the kind of love I had known on earth. This was something greater, something perfect. A love that saw everything about me, the good, the bad, the hidden corners of my soul, and embraced me completely. I wanted to stay in this love forever. And then I became aware of another presence, a being. I didn't see a face at first, but I felt them. They were not a stranger either. They had been with me my entire life, though I had never known it. There was no introduction, no need for names. I simply knew this being was my guide. They radiated warmth, kindness, and a deep sense of wisdom. They had been watching over me, waiting for this moment. And now, they were here to help me understand. Without speaking, they showed me something. It wasn't words, but a direct knowing that entered my mind in an instant. I saw my life. not as a series of memories, but as a complete interconnected story. Every choice, every action, every moment of kindness or hurt I had ever given or received, it all mattered. 1. I saw my childhood, the times I had felt alone or misunderstood, and I saw how I was never truly alone. I saw my teenage years, my struggles, my doubts, my dreams that had been left unfulfilled, and then I saw something that shook me. Now, I saw the reason I had died. I thought it had been an accident, that I had foolishly taken too many pills, but now I saw the truth. It was no accident. I had chosen this, not consciously, not in my earthly mind, but at a deeper level. My soul had known this would happen. It was part of a path, a greater design beyond my understanding. I was exactly where I was meant to be. And then my guide spoke, not with words, but directly into my spirit. There is more for you to see. And just like that, the vision of my life faded, and I was taken deeper into the light. As the vision of my life faded, I felt myself being drawn forward, deeper into the light, deeper into something far greater than I could comprehend. The realm around me shifted, and I found myself standing in what I can only describe as a garden. But it wasn't like any garden on earth. The colors were more vibrant, the air itself seemed alive, and every leaf, every flower, every blade of grass radiated a soft, golden glow. I could feel the life pulsing through this place. The energy here wasn't just contained in the plants. It flowed through everything, through me, through the space itself. I bent down, touching the petals of a flower, and the moment I did, a wave of understanding passed through me. This wasn't just a flower. It knew me. It wasn't speaking, not in the way we understand words, but in a way that was clearer, more profound. It was sharing something with me, a truth, a memory, a moment of wisdom. And I realized something astonishing. Everything in this place was connected, not just to me, but to each other. The plants, the sky, the ground, the very air. Everything was part of a grand living harmony. There was no division, no separation, only a great oneness that I had never understood before. I turned and saw figures in the distance, beings of light, moving through the garden with a grace and peace that defied explanation. They weren't walking, not in the way we do on earth. They were flowing, gliding effortlessly through the golden air. And I knew them. Not from my earthly life, but from before. Before I was born, before I came to this world. They were familiar in a way I couldn't explain, like long-lost family members I had somehow forgotten. As I watched them, I felt something shift inside me, a deep, unshakable knowing. This, this was home, not earth, not the life I had left behind. This, this was where I had come from. This was where I had always belonged. Tears filled my spirit, not from sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of recognition. It was like waking up from a long, difficult dream and finally remembering who I truly was. One of the beings turned toward me. Their light was soft, warm, and filled with such love that I felt my soul tremble in its presence. Without words, they asked me a question. It wasn't spoken aloud. It was placed within me, and I understood it instantly. Are you ready to see more? I hesitated because I knew whatever was coming next would change me forever. Uh, but deep down, I already knew my answer. Yes. I was ready. And with that, the garden began to fade. And I was taken into the next great truth. As the garden of souls faded from my vision, I felt myself moving again, not walking, not flying, but being carried by something unseen. There was no fear, only a sense of quiet expectancy. E. Then suddenly everything around me stopped. I stood at the edge of what seemed like an infinite expanse, an open space stretching endlessly in all directions. It wasn't dark, nor was it light. It was everything and nothing all at once. Ye, in the center of this space, a veil appeared. Oh, it was unlike anything I had ever seen. Not a curtain, not a wall, but a thin, shimmering boundary made of pure, living energy. It pulsed softly, shifting with an intelligence of its own. I knew what it was. It was the threshold, the point of no return. If I stepped through, I would never go back. Not to my body, not to my earthly life, not to the people I had left behind. Beyond this veil was eternity. And I had to decide. I felt the presence of the being beside me, the one who had guided me through all of this. They had not forced me in any direction. They had simply shown me the truth. Now they were silent, because this choice had to be mine alone. I thought of the life I had left behind. I saw my family, my friends, my dreams that had once seemed so important. And yet, compared to what I had just experienced, all of it felt so distant, like a story I had read long ago, one that had begun to fade from memory. But then I felt something else, a pull, a thread thin but unbroken. Love. Not the overwhelming love I had felt in the garden, but something more specific, more personal. The love of those still waiting for me, those who would grieve if I never returned, those who still needed me. And I understood. It wasn't just my choice, it was ours. I turned back to the being beside me. I didn't have to speak. They already knew. And in that instant, I felt myself being pulled back toward the world I had left. The moment I made my choice, everything shifted. I felt a force, gentle but undeniable, pulling me away from the veil. The brilliance, the peace, the boundless love of the other side began to fade, like a sunrise retreating before the night. Then came the weight. Oh, a sudden crushing density surrounded me, as though I had been light as air and was now sinking into something thick and heavy. My spirit, once free, now felt bound, wrapped in something limiting, something small. My body. I felt the slow, dull return of pain, a distant, rhythmic pounding. My heart beat, air, sharp and cold, filling my lungs again. My limbs sluggish, unresponsive. A strange disconnect, as though I was a stranger to myself. I was a stranger to myself. For a moment I struggled. My soul still carried the memory of something so vast, so beautiful, so pure. And now I was back here, confined, limited, human again. Then sound, muffled voices, urgent, worried, a sharp gasp, not from me, but from someone nearby. She's breathing, she's coming back. I felt hands gripping mine, felt warmth pressing against my skin. The sounds grew clearer. I recognized voices, friends, a doctor, a nurse, someone sobbing. I opened my eyes. The hospital room was dim, shadowed in early morning light. Everything felt different. The world was the same, and yet It wasn't. I wasn't. I had seen beyond the veil. I had stood in the presence of something greater than anything this world could ever offer. And yet, I had chosen to return, not for myself, but for them. I wanted to cry. I wanted to tell them everything. But how could I put that into words? How could I explain that I had seen a love so vast, so all-encompassing, that even the most cherished emotions here felt like a mere whisper of its power? I squeezed the hand that held mine. My mother. She leaned closer, her face streaked with tears, her breath shaky. "You're back," she whispered. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My voice came out softer than a breath. I never left. And in a way, that was true, because part of me would always remain in that place, and part of that place would always remain in me. The days after my return were unlike anything I had ever experienced. I was here, but I wasn't the same. I would sit in silence, feeling the weight of what I had seen, what I had felt. The world around me had not changed, but I saw it differently. Everything held a new depth, a new meaning. The way sunlight filtered through the trees, the rhythm of a stranger's laughter, the warmth of a loved one's touch. Before my experience, I had rushed through life, caught up in worries and distractions, in the endless busyness of the world. But now I noticed everything. I felt the pulse of life in a way I never had before. And yet, I struggled. How could I explain to anyone what had happened to me? How could I put into words the vastness, the love, the truth I had encountered? I tried at first, but words felt small, too fragile to hold something so immense. Some people listened with wonder, others with skepticism, and a few simply smiled, patted my hand, and told me I had been dreaming. But I knew better. This was not a dream. I had been there, and I had been sent back, not by accident, not by chance, for a reason. The message became clear in the quiet moments, when I sat with my thoughts, when I let myself remember fully. I had been given a second chance, not just to live, but to live differently, to love more deeply, to forgive more easily, to help others see what I now saw. And so I began. I listened more. I spoke less. I embraced each moment with reverence. I sought out kindness, and where I couldn't find it, I created it. I no longer feared death, because I knew with every fiber of my being that life does not end, that love is the foundation of everything, that we are here not just to exist, but to grow, to learn, to become. I still have questions. I still don't have all the answers. But I know this much. I was sent back to share what I had seen, to remind others of what we all forget in the noise of this world, that we are loved beyond measure, that we are never alone, and that, no matter how lost we feel, we are always on our way home.
If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it is this: there is more to this life than what we see. I was given a glimpse of something greater, something vast, loving, and eternal. A place where fear does not exist, where we are known completely and loved unconditionally. And I was sent back to share that truth. We spend so much of our lives worrying about time, about money, about what comes next. But in the end, none of that truly matters. What matters is how we love, how we treat one another, how we choose to live each day. You don't have to have a near-death experience to understand this. You only need to listen to the quiet moments, to the love that surrounds you, to the gentle whisper that reminds you, you are never alone. Death is not the end, it is a doorway. And when that time comes, we will all remember what I was allowed to see. Until then, live fully, love deeply, and trust. We are all going home someday.